Hello to all, and my name's John. I'm going to be taking you through another video on eye candy controls. Now, if anybody's seen the previous video to this one, which was the QA009, that was showing you how to create picture button controls that would change dynamically the value of a control, such as the percentage complete control. In this one, it's actually a little bit easier. This is going to be showing you how to use those picture button controls to lay out a tabbed view on the page, to multi-pages within a form template. Now I've opened in preview mode the form template that I want to place these tabbed views onto. As you can see at the moment, I've got this staff information form, just asking staff to fill in usual information, employment information about themselves. Now this is made up of a general information section and an employment information section, but I wanted to add an accreditations area, but I realised this form is now going to get longer and longer, and it's going to deter people from filling it in if they feel it's going to take time to build. What I'm going to do is, I've got it all working, but I would like to sort of break the information down a bit better. So I'm going to use a sort of a tabular styled view to keep the form looking simple. So here's my form in design view, and as you can see I've got this standard default page which is quite lengthy, and there's a few other pages I have in terms of my form. I've got this leave schedule where people can add their annual leave, and I've got this no access which I use for a demonstration of putting security behind templates as well as workflow. But it's really primarily the staff information that I want to break down into 3 different view pages, so it deceptively looks easier and a much smaller form to fill in. What I've done in advance is I've already created one view called vGeneral. This is going to be my template, which I'll copy to 2 other views. Each one will correspond to an appropriate tab control that I use. So the first thing I'm going to do is just going to add in place my 3 cells. Use the insert tab on the ribbon, custom table, and just add 3 cells, each one for my picture button properties. So the first thing I need is some resources to add into my resource files. I'm going to go into PowerPoint. As you can see in PowerPoint, I've created these 9 tabs, and I've made them so they've got a sort of flat bottom, so I can make it look like they are tabs sticking up. And I've put in 3 different groups. These would be my non-active buttons that the user can click on. If they hover over the buttons, they'll show this sort of colour. And once they've been clicked, the active view you're on will show in this sort of dark blue here. So what I've done is I've right mouse clicked on each of these controls, done save as picture, and then gave those pictures a name. So I've now got 9 files sitting in there ready to pull into Infopath. So into Infopath I go, and the first thing I do is going to go onto the ribbon in Infopath Designer, go to the Data tab, and on the left here click Resource Files. Now this displays a Resource Files dialog box where I can now add each of those resource files. So I'm going to quickly whiz through each of these 9 files and add them into my list. And there you go, there's my 9 files. Click OK. They're now ready for me to use. So I'm going to go into each of these cells, and in each cell I'm going to place a picture button control. So to the Home tab, and rather than drop down this arrow here, I'm going to actually use these arrows to scroll through the controls. There's my picture button, and the idea is that I can just leave that on screen there and very quickly click in each cell. Okay, next thing is I'm going to assign the appropriate images to each of those picture controls. So I'll right mouse click in the first one, picture button properties, and what I'm going to do is, for this template, each button will shown as if it's inactive. So I'm going to use the general tab first. That's going to be the non-active, and I'm going to set the hover picture to the general hov. So I'm going to use the same ones. You'll see why I'm using all 3 non-active. It's actually a speedy trick. So I'm going to set the same thing to the others. So these will be my employment buttons, non-active and hover. Same for the third one. That's going to be my accreditations. So that'll be my accreditation non-active and hover. Now they're slightly bigger looking, first of all, and the second thing is the cells themselves have actually got margins. So I'm going to tidy them up just by expanding. It's a little clever trick. Once I expand this list, if I click in these, you'll see it kind of automatically, but it tends to sort of refit those buttons so they are 100% of the width of the cell they're inside. The only issue I've got now is they look lengthy in terms of the font, so I'm going to select them all and I'm going to set the height of these to about 42 pixels. I'm also going to get rid of the margins, the controls, but also to the cells themselves. And I'm also going to apply the buttons so they sit anchored to the bottom of the cell height. All three of these cells, I'm going to align a sort of a border, sort of dark blue border. And you can make it as thick or as thin as you need, but that will kind of act like the base of each of these tabs. As I hover over each of these, they're showing the highlighted or the hover picture. It's quite good. Okay. Now they're all showing the non-active. You'll see that it's actually just a lazy, speedy thing on my part. I'm now going to create the other views. I'm going to create the views now, just leave them empty. So I'm going to have a view employ. I'm going to remove any template that's within that. Don't need it. And I'm going to also have a new accreditation one. And again, with the new view, I'm going to remove the page layout that's placed by default inside it. So I have the three. When I go back to my general view, I can now select each control and build the action rule that will switch views. So I'm going to go to my home tab, go to the right hand side here and click manage rules. There we go. And for each one I will build a new action rule, switch view, no condition, but I will apply an action to switch views. And I'll get this to switch to the V general view. I'm already on the view, I'm just building the action, preparing it so it'll always switch there. Copy that rule and paste it onto the others. Therefore, the only thing I've got to then change is the existing action to choose the correct view. Okay, and I'll copy that rule again, select the accreditations and paste it there. Just changing the current action to the appropriate view. Now that's ready to go. I can now use that as my template for the other two pages or two views. So I'm going to copy the entire layout, go to each view and paste it in. Preview mode, it is working. The only thing is you can't see it working because every view is exactly the same. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some content into each of these pages so you can see I am switching between views. Now I'm going to grab the old content from my former page and place it into the appropriate views. And I'll place this underneath that line there. So by adding the appropriate information underneath the buttons on each page, if I preview the form again, so there you go, as I click it looks like I'm actually the top, it looks like one form, always the one form, but these tabs here are very cleverly changing the information below. Now the final bit is to give that impression that they are looking at an active page, just to remind them. At the moment when you click a button, you move your mouse away, apart from that heading there, you don't get a very clear indication of which particular page you're on or view. So the last thing is now to go to each one of these. It's very easy. Is I'm on the general view first, so therefore I'll take the general information picture button control and I'll change the picture resource file to show its active button, and then remove the hover. I don't need the hover on this one. And I'm going to make sure that the picture size of 42 pixels in height. I'm also going to remove the rule. It doesn't really matter if I click the same button, it'll just switch the same view. But just in case there's a flicker or any sort of blink where the action reruns, I'm going to completely remove the rule to prevent it running any actions that are not necessary. All I've got to do now is repeat that for the other pages. So if I switch to my employment page, I'll now do the same thing to the employment button. So I'm going to change the properties, show the active image for the employment, take away the hover, and the last thing is to adjust the size of the picture, and you can also delete the rule. I'm going to do this to the accreditations and we're done. So I've now adjusted the accreditations button so it has also gives the impression that it is active. So when I now preview my new form, I'm now switching nice and clearly between each of my tabs. And again, the page looks like it's the same page each time, but to the user it's the bottom half that is changing. And there we go, that's it. Have fun. Hopefully you'll have better created buttons than mine. Don't forget I use PowerPoint to just give a quick demonstration, but you can, with some rather smarter graphics, have some great effective form templates designed within Infopath. Have fun.